back to the Fantasy Grimoire podcast. And today we have the incredible Sarah with us of Sarah's Starlit Stories. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. I'm so excited to be here.
While I mostly focus on authors on the podcast, I do like to include other people in the bookish community because, sure, we write the books, we create these wonderful worlds, but we're not the only people in this scenario. We rely on people like yourself, bookstagrammers, or people that have turned it into a business to help us get the word out there. So that's why I like to every now and then throw someone like you in as a podcast guest, because the work that you're doing for this community is so, so important. With that being said, I want to find out from you, how do we go from a regular bookstagrammer account, because that's what you started at?
Yeah.
And if I recall correctly, I saw recently booked out for the entire 2026. How do we go in that trajectory? Talk us through.
First of all, I am just so incredibly grateful. I had no idea that I would take off like this and I would get the amount of support that I have. I absolutely love the Bookstagram community, and I'm a mother and I've been a stay-at-home mom for the past 5 years, 6 years, and I kind of lost myself along the way. It all started with Kristen Hanna's The Nightingale, and I read that and I was like, oh my gosh, I miss reading fiction, because for a while I was only reading nonfiction. That kind of just snowballed into like Sarah J. Maas, and then I just started getting really interested in reading again, and I was like, I need to create a Bookstagram account. And I was like, you know what? I really want to see where I can take this. I want to expand on this amazing community that I've already built for myself and try to get even more people involved. Expand on it in any way that I possibly can. I built a website. I started a newsletter. I started a book club. But when I did all of these things, I didn't really have a direction that I wanted to go in. And I didn't know what my purpose was in this besides just being a bigger part of the community. I started DMing some of my friends from Bookstagram and being like, this is what I'm doing, but I don't really know where to take this. Hillary Anna, she's an author as well. And she was like, you know what, Sarah, it would be really great if you could use your platform to highlight indie authors. And as soon as she said it, I was like, oh my God, that's it. I can use my website. I can do blog posts about them. I can feature their books on my website with links to purchase. It just all clicked, and featuring them in my book club and having giving the readers a perk to be able to actually talk to the author at the end of the month. As soon as she said it, I just knew that that's what I wanted to do. And I felt so incredibly passionate about it and I think the more that I work with you all, the more passionate I become, because now I'm so interwoven into this community and I see the struggles and I see the talent, and I just want to help as much as I possibly can. I initially started off doing the monthly spotlight series for free, just to kind of build brand awareness and to let people know hey, this is what I'm starting to do now. And I want to be known as the indie author advocate. I want to become the indie author champion. This is who I am. This is who I'm going to be. And I want to get my name out there. And so I just got done in March with that indie author spotlight series. I announced that I was going to be offering certain packages, as you well know. And I had to announce that I was monetizing, which was a really, really, really hard switch for me, because it was I want to help this community, but at the same time, I know that my time is valuable, and I want to also create a business for myself, to do something for myself, because I've been a stay-at-home mom for so long. And so putting that out there and being hey, I am going to offer these packages at certain prices. And it's I felt like everyone was going to hate me. But when I announced it, I just got so much support from everyone. And they were like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. We're so proud of you. Yes, I'm interested. I got a ton of applications. It's overwhelming. It's just been such an amazing experience. And I kind of booked up the first half of the year and then closed it. I think I booked up 6 months and 6 weeks. And then this time around, I think I did another 6 months and 5 weeks. Obviously the demand is there, but like where I'm at now with my packages, I think is where I'm going to stay for a while. I'm constantly juggling multiple authors at the same time. Right now I'm featuring Reno in my book club, so I'm posting content about that. I just got done reading Danielle, who is my indie author for book club pick for May. But then I'm also creating content for Iris Gill, who's being featured at the end of this month. And I just downloaded your book because you're the second author in May that I'll be featuring. So it's like this constant juggle. And I'm taking this year to kind of really get into the groove. And then after this year, I'm going to start thinking about other ways to promote indie authors. I don't really know exactly how I'm going to do that, but I know that I want to. But right now, I just need to focus on the year of 2026.
Lots to unpack there. I wouldn't be against the idea of helping or kind of guiding indie authors on how to market outside of your slot. One of the big mistakes that I made with Legion of Pride is that I cast the net too wide. There was lots of positives that came with that. I think off the top of my head, I can name 10 new to me readers, which is phenomenal. Like that is phenomenal. They're in my DMs telling me they're obsessed with me, and I'm like, wait, what?
Oh, isn't that the best?
I was like, are you talking to the right person? You know, like it's that kind of thing. Looking back on it now, I can see that when I kind of went into the arc phase, I got a little bit panicked about this book is so niche. There's usually romance subplots in my books. There is fuck all in this book. Okay. Fine, which is fine because like that was the story I needed to tell. But I wrote this book knowing that it was very niche, and I think I'm a good marketer, but there's things that I could do better in future. And I mean, you don't know what you don't know. And I just that, and I'm seeing this a lot with the newer indie authors that are coming onto the scene where they still have to learn. It's not enough to just write the book, you know, through that kind of experience. And one that I'm actually beta reading for her now. I made it through her first 2 chapters. Fucking phenomenal. Okay. So it's really, it's standard stuff. But her writing is just, I was like, where have you been? She's incredible. And she's telling me how overwhelmed she is with this process just to get it into the publication thing. And I was like, I say to her, because I don't want to add to that, I was like, I don't want to offer you unsolicited advice. I'm going to change this around where if you get stuck, let me know and I'm happy to point you in the right direction. It's something that I am personally struggling with right now about how get better with these things. But at the same time, I have to ask, what do your kids say about mom's business? Do they understand or are they too young?
They're pretty young, so they just turned 6 and 5. But they know that I do interviews and they know that I'm talking to people. And Dad likes to say, Mommy gets paid to read. And I'm like, honey, I do much more than that. But like, I guess kinda, yeah. Because that's one thing that for the integrity of the Starlit shelf. And the reason why I filled up so quickly for 2026 is because I'm severely limited in how many people I can take on because I can only read so much. And this is something I will hold to forever, is that I will always read every single author's book in its entirety. And that's something that I don't want to do blind promotions. That just didn't sit right with me. That's something that other people told me, like, this is something that you really need to like kind of stick to. And I was like, I absolutely agree. My husband is very proud of me. And I think he just likes to see that I'm doing something that I truly am passionate about and care about. And it's something that also just allows me to be with my kids. So in that way, my kids are noticing it because I'm able to stay home with them and I'm able to be present with them through their, school pickups, drop-offs, and hobbies, whatever it may be. Like, I'm there. But going back to what you were saying about marketing, that is by far the most common answer that I get, because I have like a go-to set of questions and then obviously we'll go off on tangents, but I always say, what's the hardest part? What advice would you give to other indie authors who are just starting out? And they're like, just know that writing's just the start. There's so much more that comes after that is so much harder for us because writing is our art. That's our passion. That's what we want to do. But then there's everything else that comes after that is really, really challenging for an author. It's so common for indie authors to struggle with the things that come after. writing the book, because that's just the tip of the iceberg. And there's so much else that follows to get their book into the hands of readers.
If I look at my strategy as an author, I kind of go with the hook of I'm writing based on like the CW 2010 era, like your Vampire Diaries, your Gossip Girl. That's my inspiration. I know that that is not going to be everyone's cup of tea. In fact, I have a friend. She's a hardcore romantasy girly. She's coming to help me at some events here in the Netherlands soon. I feel really bad that I haven't read your books. And she's like, I feel like I should. And I was like, please don't. I was like, and I'll tell you why. Is because I know you need romance in your stories. And the type of romance that I write it's going to piss you off. And I was like, no, and I know that because I was like, you need the like the happy ending and the fluffy stuff and whatever. I write dark, okay? I mean,
I'm so excited that you're saying that, because I'm always like, can it just be like not a happy ending for some? Like, am I dark because I'm like, I kind of need something bad to happen, because I feel like there's always that like, oh, the main character died, but wait, they're back to life. I mean,
yes,
it's so. Okay, good.
There's several things that happen in Legion of Pride that you might get upset with me about. My editor and I had this back and forth where I was stamping my feet and she was stamping her feet, but they were like, oh, it makes for good storytelling. I also just had my beta readers finish another manuscript where they thought it was going to go one way.
And it didn't.
And she messaged me and she was like, what the fuck just happened? I was like, I know. But my point, you don't need to be my friend and read my books. Like the two are not mutually exclusive. You can just, if you want to pitch it at an event, Vampire Diaries meets a Gossip Girl. Bam. That's it.
One thing that I really love about indie books is that I get those unique stories. And I'm a person that I'm pretty open to most genres. You can't really put me off. I don't need smut. I need a good plot. And that's really all I care about, you know? So it doesn't really matter the genre. And that's why I feel like I'm good at what I do, because I get such a wide variety of different kinds of books. And it's so interesting, but they're so unique. And that's why I think it's so important to support indie authors, because there's so much of the same formula when it comes to books that are like traditionally published, because they know that it works. They know that it's popular. But now that I've been reading indie authors, I'm like, wow, there's just so much more uniqueness in this group of authors than what I would get from traditionally published authors. It's interesting because there's been some books that haven't been my favorite, but I'm a firm believer that every book has a reader, even though it might not be my favorite. What I'm going to do, so I don't say I'm going to do a review of your book. I never promise that in my packages. Is I'll write like a blog post about the book. And even if it wasn't my favorite, I'll say like what the book's about, what the highlights were for me, like what the things that stuck out to me the most about this book, and then who this book would be good for. It's not a review, but just kind of like a generalization and my take on it without critiquing it, because that's not what I'm getting paid to do. I am just trying to highlight the book for the author and then try to get it to the readers that are appropriate for the book.
The girls that were in my DMs recently, I have this little theory. I'm trying to build like my ideal reader profile, which in hindsight I should have done it, but whatever. I asked each of them the question of what was it about like my marketing that attracted them to me? The fact that I delivered on the things that I said I was going to deliver on, because that is a big issue for them recently, is that they will say, for example, let's use the enemies to lovers trope.
I was just going to say it's enemies to lovers.
I mean, it's the classic one. And they're already like fucking by page 5, you know, kind of thing. And they're like, well, it's not enemies to lovers. Have you read Dagger Mountain?
I just started it today. Started it. I just got to chapter 1.
Message me when you're done. Okay. I'll change I'll change the book thing. The Poison Daughter. Have you read that?
No, but I heard about it and I heard it's an indie author too. So, okay. Yes.
I can't use examples with you now. I just dropped Sheila's episode this week. So, like, she is incredible. She is the sweetest. She's now gone trad.
Yeah.
She's published quite a few books before The Poison Daughter, and The Poison Daughter was like a breakout success. Back to the example of enemies to lovers, but these two do enemies to love as well. Like, it is the best implementation I have seen of it in a very, very long time. But the girls, when I was chatting to them, they said, I deliver on the things that I say I will. And that's why I'm very careful about romance anywhere in my marketing.
Mm-hmm.
My other series, I say there's romance subplots, which there are, but I'm not going to write about yearning and shit. Like, go read a romantasy then. Like, I'm not your girl. And then they also said that my combination of comps that I use, because I usually use TV series or movies to really use another book. Between those two things and the nostalgia aspect, that's like what draws them in. So that's something like I'm trying to experiment a little bit more with.
I'm excited to promote your book and do all your stuff. Like, so I was like, I have a little bit of time before before I need to start Stephanie's book, I was like, I'm going to read Daggermouth. But it's funny because I had The Poisoned Daughter as one of my options because my focus is indie authors and it's the people who want to work with me. It's like, that is my priority. If I can squeeze in another book, I will try. But right now, my reading is literally most like 95% the authors who I am working with. And I'm not complaining. I love it. But it's like, I don't really have time besides like audiobooks to read other books that are like maybe Trap House, The Poisoned Daughter. And I just found out she's an indie author and I thought of you. And I was like, I love that people are associating me with indie authors now. Like if they know of a good indie author, they're going to send it my way.
I want to talk about your least and your most favorite moments in the business so far.
Should I start with the good or the bad? So I would say that my least favorite thing is, and I've talked about this multiple times on my page, and so you probably know, but I post a lot of informative posts about indie authors or things that you may not know about indie authors or the struggles that indie authors go through, right? I have these carousels and they do really, really well. Or like how to support indie authors. Then the authors who work with me and who I am promoting, I will post their content. The difference in interactions and views is staggering. It's so frustrating. This is what I'm talking about when I'm like, now that I'm part of this community, I understand the struggle because indie authors have to promote themselves. And it's like, they're primarily talking about an individual indie author and it's them. And so I see the difference when like, I'm talking about indie authors, like support indie authors and everybody loves that concept and the algorithm loves it. But then when it's like, when it actually comes down to supporting this indie author, it's like crickets. I have like my Ride or Dies, who is like a small group from the big community that I have, like my 30 people that interact with this content, which I love. I love you guys. You're the best. I want to say that this is not from a selfish place. This is because I do not want to let the author down. And I have had to kind of coach myself and be like, even if it's not taking off now, it doesn't mean that it won't. I have content that is still getting interacted with that I posted like 4 months ago. Right. And so it's really challenging because again, I'm like, who is going to want to work with me when they see these differences happening? And it's like imposter syndrome. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? Like, how can I learn from this? And I feel like my content has improved a lot since, I featured LJ, who was my first monthly spotlight author. I'm growing. I'm a baby account. I'm a baby account on like all of my accounts. I don't want to feel like I've let down the author themselves because my purpose is to help them. And it's like when I remember I posted a reel about it and I was like venting. And the next day I posted about Taylor Cantrell. It did so much better. But then after that, it like went back down. I think it's a mix of both, but it's like the algorithm isn't pushing it out. This is something that indie authors deal with all the time. And it's like, I haven't figured out yet how to capture the reader's attention fully to where they want to save it. They want to share it to their story. They want to start following the author, right? And so all that, my favorite moment is, and Sorsha's really good at this. So Sorsha, thank you for doing this, but she will message me anytime that a reader has reached out to her and has been like, oh my gosh, I really loved your book. And she's like, how did you find me? And then she'll send me a screenshot that says they found her through Sarah Starlit stories. And I'm just like, Like that's my favorite thing. So even just connecting one reader and author together makes it worthwhile, makes that frustration worthwhile. Because again, I do believe that every book has a reader. And so finding that connection and being able to get the reader intrigued enough to follow the author, to read their book, right? And that's why I say my book club is so, so important. And that I want people to join in on, because it's one book per month, and it's like, it's an indie author and you get to talk to them. Like it's the best way to support an author, because you're actually reading their book. Like, right. Authors want followers, authors want likes, but it's very different than actually gaining a reader and getting that review. So that's my favorite moment, is when I actually get it to that point, rather than just like a Instagram interaction.
As someone that is now signed up for your services, I understand the risks going into a partnership with you. And I also understand that you cannot control everything. At the base, you can give me a platform to spotlight my book, which you're doing. I've noticed that with The Rule of the Damned, my pink cover, people are still eating it up like years later. Where the Legion of Pride cover, which is a gorgeous cover, but when you put both of them in the same screen, Legion of Pride gets lost behind. I'm not going to change it. Like, that's my cover. I have the whole series designed around that. I realize that you cannot control everything. For me, the opportunity to spotlight in your platform, for all I know, I could be someone's next favorite author in your network. And if it's just one person, to me, that's worth it. I'm less worried about likes and followers and whatever. More about someone giving a shit about my work.
Well, it's funny because literally no author has ever complained to me ever about the content I've created. If anything, they're very grateful, but this is me having those seeds of doubt about what I'm doing. Is it worthwhile? Am I making a difference? And then an author will be like, I got a reader through you. Thank you. And it's like, that's made it worthwhile. And so it's just these internal struggles of myself. Literally no author has ever made me feel bad or made me doubt myself. It's just me having that. And I'm trying to be better, and to like, self-love is my theme for 2026, because I've been really, really hard on myself, and I have like reflexive negative thinking, and I'm a very anxious person. And so I'm trying to like, okay, like that's a thought, but like, let's let it go. Let's focus on what's right here. Because, and I remember again, before like I monetize, I had all these like worst case scenarios, like I'm going to get canceled. I'm going to have to like delete my books. And it's like, it's a challenge for me to see these differences, but no one else is bringing it up besides me. I just never want an author to feel like I didn't do enough. And again, it hasn't happened, but I'm really scared about that. I know I have to give myself grace. It's that I'm just starting out. I've only been doing this since January.
I remember a NetGalley review coming in. So unfortunately, NetGalley reviews, you get the notifications. You're going to see it whether you want to or not. It was one of the rare 5 stars I got on each. Well, before I deleted it. And the beginning of it, before I deleted it, I saw where she said, I need this book to go viral. And I was like, okay. Sure, like what is that? But then in the next breath, I have my first ever 1-star come in, and it was a very nice 1-star, might I add. Like, that's the weird thing about me and reviews, is that if you are kind in your bad review, then I'm like, cool. It's not the end of the world. The moment you become insulting and cruel, that's where I have an issue. I get it, because I'm having to learn how to practice self-love as well, and realizing that my brand as a person, outside of the author stuff as well, is I have always been an acquired taste. I've never been ashamed of that. I'm kind of needing to teach myself to do the same as an author, where I don't want to appeal to the masses. I don't want to become a viral hit. I want to be able to create art on my terms and have no one else take that art except me.
I think that's the biggest common misconception for readers about indie authors. They think that they self-publish simply because they could not get traditionally published. This is something that I try to reiterate often. If you go through like my past carousels, you'll see that I kind of repeat information, but it's because it bears to be repeated. It's like you get creative freedom, you have more rights to your book, you get more money from your book, like you get a bigger percentage of the funds from your book. It's just a lot of authors choose. And like there's some that have done traditional publishing and then went back to self-publishing because they didn't like the lack of control over their book. And so there's obviously self-publishers who tried to do trad and then didn't end up getting it and then just went with self-publishing. There's a lot of freedom in self-publishing that a lot of authors choose to not go trad.
I sent a grand total of 1 query letter. And this was obviously right back in the beginning. Now, wasn't a very good one. And I have to give the trad publishers a bit of credit there.
Yeah.
Someone was like, oh, did you know that self-publishing exists? And I was like, what is the self-publishing that you talk of? Tell me more.
Yeah, tell me more,
And then after I learned about it, I was like, well, fuck traditional publishing. I don't want to do that anymore. I was like, I'm going to go balls to the walls on this one. And I haven't. Someone actually asked me recently if an agent ever like tried to offer to you, and I'd be like, unless you have a Netflix deal waiting for me, you may keep your trad deal. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
because for me, it very much is a goal where I would love to get one of my books picked up for a TV series. Like, if that ever happens, I've peaked. Like, I'm done. Okay, there's nothing else. I do want to turn the tables a little bit and ask you, what is your bookish hot take?
I love it when we can gain a reader for an author. Highlight of my work. But it also really matters if that reader promotes that book the same way that they would promote a Sarah J. Maas book. Right. So the way that we talk about books is really, really important because visibility is such a huge struggle. And my bookish hot take is that if we promoted indie authors or talked about indie authors and the books that we've read by indie authors as much as we talk about the big name authors, because everybody wants to talk about the big name authors because they know that those reels will perform well. I feel like the publication world would vastly change and we would be getting a lot more unique stories. And I feel the readers, this is one thing I want readers to know is that they hold so much power in an indie author's life. Talk about an indie author, it makes a big difference. And if we all start to promote them in that way, then we will see more unique stories getting picked up, getting more representation in our characters. I just feel like readers have a ton of power and we're not using it the way that we should be. And for instance, in my book club, I'm always like, okay, when you read this book, leave a review. Please, like leave her, even if it's not a good one, even if you don't want to write a paragraph, it's okay. Like leave your star review, but then also say like the characters really resonated with me. And like, that's it. You don't have to write a novel. It doesn't have to be this huge critique of this book, but just do something because those reviews make a big difference for those indie authors because a lot of the authors I do have less than 100 reviews on their book. And so it's like we need to not only read, but also to promote them ourselves and to be like, oh, well, you liked this book. You should read this one because this is one that I read and this author could use the support.
Perfect example, H.M. Wolf. She talked about this regularly on her page where she started off indie. She had the Book of Sin and I forget the second one's name. So those were her debut. That was her debut series. And then she into Daggermouth, which is a duology, and she also has a Phantom of the Opera type of duology hiding in the wings. Yeah, I know that was my reaction. How I got into Daggermouth was actually the Pencoal episode because when I asked her about the book that she recommended, Daggermouth had just launched like a few days before we recorded, and she was like, "This is the next big thing," and I was like, "Well, if Pencoal's telling me that, of course I'm going to listen." So anyway, I read it and I was like, "Why the fuck have I waited this long?" But H.M. Wolf, she was talking about Daggermouth has only been out for 4 months. In 4 months, she got a 7-figure deal and it has completely changed her life. And she's saying exactly what you're saying. She's like, the power that readers have is incredible because they've changed her life. Do you know that she even launched, the indie author fund that Pencoal, Melissa K. Rourke, I don't know how to say it. So they have an indie author fund that they do at the beginning of each year, right? Yeah, it's actually really cool. But what H.M. Wolf has done now, because of her trade deal, she's created the equivalent for Black content creators, authors, and everything.
That's so cool.
I was like, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I honestly got goosebumps when you said that. I was like, that is so amazing. I love that. That's a what a use your newfound popularity and the new money that you just came into. Oh,
When you write a series, right, you can't just think about the current book. You have to think about how does this book or this concept work over several books, okay? And as
right.
well, so you'll meet Iris and what Iris starts at point A in book one, but she still has book two and book three to get through. So have I got enough of a character arc for her story to tell those three books? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
because if you do the same version of her in each book, you're gonna be like, well, this is boring. I don't want to read
Yeah.
this. I
Yeah.
wouldn't want to read. I'm choosing my words carefully so I don't spoil anything.
Okay. Yeah.
What things can happen over the course of all three books to kind of give us like an overarching plot instead of like just the three. So I'm thinking about storytelling from that aspect.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't maybe like book one because it wasn't enough of whatever. Okay, well, read the whole series first. And then if you still feel the same way, fine. Like, that, you do you. But you can't get upset with me because the beginning was too heavy on world building.
I primarily read fantasy books, and so I primarily read series. And now that I'm doing indie authors, I primarily read book ones of series. I know going into a book one of a series that book one is primarily focused on character introduction, development, and world building. Like, that's just a known thing. If you're an avid reader, you also know this and should expect that.
I want to talk scandals for a second.
Yeah.
So when we were prepping for our recording, Brimstone had just released. I saw a lot of people getting upset about the poor editing quality, which I haven't read Brimstone. I haven't read anything from Kelly Hart,
Mm-hmm.
but which I found surprising because the editing argument is usually used for an indie author. We also have the age-old thing of audiobooks don't count as reading.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Yeah, that one's so gross. And then the latest one, obviously, we have the AIs coming in the world like, oh, I didn't like this book, so it must be written by AI. And then my latest favorite is that readers are getting like arcs and proofs from like the trad publishers,
Mm-hmm.
but like the really sought after ones. And then they're putting it up on like secondhand booksellers or like Vinted, or I think it's Pango that you guys use in the States, for like $500 plus. Yeah, that was my reaction. My question to you is that all these controversies and scandals going around, why do you think that us as readers are so passionate about these topics and the way we feel about
That's a big old question. My goodness. When it comes down to the seed of the issue, it's because reading is very personal, and we can see ourselves in these characters. We can see ourselves in these authors who are telling this story that they felt needed to be told. And people can get really fired up about things that they feel personally about. I'm pretty shielded from these things. Like, I hear about bookish drama, but I'm like, I didn't know about that. Take Brimstone, for instance. So I read Quicksilver, but I listened to it. And then I started Brimstone and then I DNF'd it. I just am not getting invested in the story. I'm not going to waste my time doing something that, like, I'm like, what's going on? I don't care. You know what I mean? And so, but like, I didn't notice the editing. And one of my favorite series is Zodiac Academy. And I think they published that, self-published that. I think that's an indie book. It's an indie
Yes.
series, but the editing is like notoriously bad, right? But it is my favorite series of all time. And I feel like people just take it personally because they feel a connection to the books. When they do connect with a story, that it can kind of become tied to their identity. And so that's, yeah, I know. I was like, I was taking notes for this interview. And so yeah, it becomes tied to their identity. And so when these discussions happen, they can take it kind of personally.
The Zodiac Academy one? I have read that whole series. I realized that I am in the minority, is that I don't actually think it was badly edited. Okay, so like,
yeah.
My issue with Zodiac Academy as a series is that it was drawn out unnecessarily long. That actually pissed me off as a reader because by the time I got to like book 6 or 7, I was like, well, now I'm in and now I have to finish the series. Like, I can't not, because that's going to piss me off even more. And I'm like, if that had actually ended in book 6, perfection. Okay, then it would be one of my go-to series.
I primarily listened, and so like I was fine, but I feel the same way. So maybe in that way, the expansion of it for so long. Maybe that's what we mean with editing, is that like it could have gotten edited down to be more condensed and to have ended at like book 7, because I think there's 9. Where is it? Yeah, there's 9. Well, with novellas all scattered between, right? But I've only read the official 9, and yeah, I definitely say that I was kind of forcing myself through 8 and 9, and so maybe that's what a lot of people are talking about. It's not necessarily like typos. There could have been a lot taken out of the books and still had maintained its integrity and the story.
Let's be real, that world building concept, and it's been a while since I've read Zodiac Academy. I think Solaria, it was Solaria the name? If you look at the creativity with coming up with something like that, I mean, that is fucking god tier stuff over there.
That was something about the Twisted Sisters, is that when you say god tier series, I kind of agree, because I don't think I've been so sucked into a series like right out the gate than Zodiac Academy. And it's funny because I hate bullies. Like I hate it. Just I hate negativity like that, and it makes me feel icky. But the way that you hate certain characters at the beginning of the series, like Seth Capella, what an ass, but you don't like him at all.
No, well, no. In the beginning,
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, because he's like my boy, and I love him so much towards the end of the book, or honestly, like maybe even starting in like book 3, or actually I feel like book 2 they start doing their point of views, don't they? And so you kind of get to know like what their reasoning is behind it. Oh my god, it's just like the way that they flip it like that. I was just so impressed by that writing.
What shocked me the most about Seth is that usually when we get the sex scene between him and Caleb, I believed the romance between them. I was like, what is going on right now? And I was like, because it was such an emotionally charged, and like the build up to, and I was like, now that's how you do romance.
Yeah, they were edging us a lot with Seth and Caleb. Yeah. It was upsetting me a little bit. I was like, come on. But no, it's just such an incredible series. But yes, I think that, and again, like me and you were talking about it, and we're like, we love it. And so we feel emotionally tied to these people, these characters, these writers. And it's like, now the Twisted Sisters are go-to authors for me. I actually, I'm like midway through Neverkeep. I kind of paused it because I just felt like I wasn't paying attention like I needed to. But when you brought up enemies to lovers, I was like, Neverkeep is, I haven't finished it, but like it's on trend to be like an actual enemies to lovers. The guy does something pretty messed up in the beginning to the FMC, and it's like, how is this ever gonna work? Because she's like out to, him, and I don't see how a romance is capable with these two characters, because the hatred is so like ingrained. When talking about big, not controversies, but like big debates in the book community, another one that, and then this is a big author, and I apologize, it's not indie, but like Sarah J. Maas, The Court of Silver Flames. Nesta is a constantly debated, heated topic of discussion. People get really worked up about it because Nesta goes through this self-deprecating depression, substance abuse, just a huge mental struggle, but she also lashes out to her family because of it. And like she treats them kind of like shit, but she's going through things. And I really appreciated Nesta's journey and her character arc and her climbing the mountain and all these things. And so when people bash on her, I think I even have a reel about it. I feel like you haven't gone through something like that. Like you haven't felt these kinds of deep mental struggles, PTSD, things like this. And I think that's why like the Nesta fans get like pretty upset about it, because then you don't understand me, because I have had these struggles too. I've maybe been unfair to people around me who are just trying to support me. You know what I mean? Because I was going through something and I'm finally on the other side of it. But like, I see me in Nesta when we feel these deep connections to these characters, and then we see someone like talking crap about these characters, we want to like get into a fight about it, because it's like, how can you say that? How do you not understand?
I think the emotional depth that I got from that book was just because I'll be honest with you, Feyre irritates the shit out of me. I'm like, you're a whiny little bitch. Like we've all had like,
yeah.
When they brought in Nesta, I was like, you're a little bit of a bitch, but I know you're not going to stay that way. So I'm going to latch on to you and see where you end up. And that journey was just beautiful.
Yeah. And I feel like once the interview came out with Sarah J. Maas, where she was like, I was going through that with Nesta when I was like, me and her were, oh, I'm getting goosebumps, but like I was climbing I'm climbing that mountain with her. And it's like, then finally a lot of readers who have been like talking crap about Nesta are like, oh, well, okay. Yeah. Well, since the queen said that that's what she was going through, now I get it. I'm glad people are like, at least they're starting to understand, but like, it's just so many people go through so many traumas, mental health issues. And this is one thing I really love about indie books is that they're able to take those risks by writing about these deep issues, these really hard things that a lot of us go through, but we aren't able or don't feel like we can talk about it openly. This is why I feel like readers really need to lift up these books, because I feel like it's so important for not only the author to get seen, but also for the readers to get seen, to see themselves in these characters, to see themselves in these journeys that these characters go through.
I use Dexter as a comp for, I was going to say the rule that I mentally took it right.
Dexter, the show?
Yeah, it's one of my comps.
Oh, girl. I am so excited because Mindfuck is like one of my favorite of all time. I like literally, this is my go-to recommendation.
Surprise!
It's my go-to recommendation, but I always compare it. I was like, if Dexter was a woman.
Yes.
Like, yes. Yeah.
So mine's more about if Dexter and Criminal Minds had a baby and then there was a supernatural twist.
Ooh. Oh, yeah. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to promote your book.
So, if you look at Dexter on the show, and remember, Dexter was actually a book first. So they made the show based. Yeah, it's a book. It's a book series. I think there's 6. Okay.
I gotta write this down. I gotta look it up. Okay, sorry. Go on.
And how Harry and Dexter talk about his code and how to blend in. So that was definitely part of the inspiration. Mm-hmm. But another part of my inspiration when coming up with Iris's character, the FMC, was about us as women. We always have this expectation placed on us where you need to be more of this, be less of this. In your case, be a mother, be a wife, be a businesswoman, be a friend. Like, it's never enough to just be who you are. Like when someone was saying to me, oh, I didn't like Iris as an FMC. Well, that's fine, but she's challenging. For me, she's a representation of challenging the norm, and she's trying to do something different, which could probably get her killed, may not get her killed. Like there's a lot of time there. And I'm just like, I wanted to see someone different in my novel. She's Latina, which is huge. That for me.
Yeah. Love it.
I was so fucking nervous about writing a non-white main character. So I'm lucky enough where I have a few Latina authors I can reach out to fact check and whatnot. And there were a lot of things that got wrong, FYI. So
I was gonna ask, because that's really interesting, because I obviously I don't know what you are, but like I was like, writing from a different person's background's perspective must be really challenging, but I'm glad that you utilize people around you who have those experiences so that you can portray it in a sensitive and accurate manner.
For the record, I'm South African.
I'm like, I don't know what you are.
Someone said to me once a while ago, and it really stuck with me, is that it's our responsibility as authors to go for inclusion. If I feel that I cannot write about Latina, Black, whatever, pick a different race than your own, why am I writing about a man?
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. Very true. Very true. Yeah.
And that challenged the way that I thought. In my other series, so I have 4 main POVs in the first book, and one of my main characters is a lesbian. Sure, I'm a female, but I don't know what it's like to have a relationship with a romantic relationship with a female. I was very lucky at that stage. It's crazy how this worked out. One of my beta readers at the time, I didn't know this, ended up being a lesbian. Okay, so she could help me with a lot of mechanics. Because I was like, I may have been a man, but like, I was like, I have questions. Through getting to know her at the time, I felt that it was really important to a gay main character in the books. Like in this world, it is normal. It's just cool. I sleep with men, you sleep with women, and we move along. I want to normalize it. No, it's maybe not the most fair question to ask you considering your business model, but if you had to pick just one fantasy book to recommend.
Of my indie authors?
anyone, doesn't have to be of your indie authors, like you as Sarah, like a book that has spoken to your soul recently.
Again, Zodiac Academy. I absolutely love that series. I've had so many, my indie authors are so talented. The Silversmith, like if you want a book of yearning, here.
And it's on my list. That's on my
So
list. Yep.
she was my first author. So I was a beta reader for her. When I decided to, like, I love LJ so much, but when I decided to do the Starlit shelf, I was like, hey, LJ, can you be my first author? Like, can you help me out? I was very lucky with that because she was like, hey, just so you know, I'm technically not going to be indie by the end of the month. This has all the things that you want in a romantasy book. The way LJ does it is just so good. I swear you will not find yearning like this. I'd like, if I had to describe this book in one word, it would be yearning. It was incredible. I got to beta read her second book and I was sobbing. Like it's just so good. She's so talented, but like truly my indie authors, they're mine, by the way. They're my indie authors. But I don't know why I'm continuing to be surprised, but their storytelling capabilities are immaculate. They are just so good and they're so unique. The Fourth Portal, this is like a mix of sci-fi and fantasy. This is J.A. Merkel. And this is there's 7 POVs, and it's just this amalgamation of all of these different characters with all of these different characteristics. I've never read anything like this before. And
okay, we've spoken a lot about how your business got started, how it's evolving, and a lot of the plans that you have for the rest of the year. But what can we as readers expect to see next from you in the Starlit Shelf?
I do plan on re-interviewing LJ Claren, who is the author of The Silversmith, which is becoming a lot more well-known. She just switched over to Trad Publishing. So we're going to get to see, so if you're an author and you follow me, you're going to get to find out what it's like to go from self-publishing to Trad Publishing. So that's going to be really interesting to hear from LJ's perspective. But another interview that I have coming up in May, I will be interviewing Harriet Ashford again. So she did the Trouble series, The Trouble with Love and Coaches and The Trouble with Love and Exposure. So her narrators for The Trouble with Love and Coaches are Marie Mitchell and also Gabriel Michael. Marie Mitchell is a narrator who's just kind of starting out. I think she only has a few books under her belt. So we're going to hear her perspective of being a new narrator and doing indie author and indie books. But Gabriel Michael, do you know who it is? Do you know anything? Okay. He is the voice of Zayden Ryerson from Fourth Wing in the graphic audio. So he will be on the Starlit Shelf, and I am like, oh my God. We talk about bloopers. I am going to be so nervous talking about it. Like he did the voice of Max for Zodiac Academy in the graphic audio. He did Sam Keel for the Book of Azrael. So he's a fairly well-known, popular narrator, and he's going to be featured on my YouTube channel. I am just so excited for these new interviews coming up. The more traction that I get, the more people will become aware of the importance of supporting indie authors. Super excited about that. 2026 is booked. I have book club authors through January. January is a very special month, by the way. So I haven't said anything about it, but someone very special to me is going to be featured in January. I might cry because I'm just so excited for it, but I'm proud of this person. Like I just cannot wait. Lots of good things, lots of amazing authors, and 2026 is booked. Tune into my Instagram, my website, my YouTube, my book club. Book club's the best. It's on Fable, Starlit Shelf. This is the best way to support indie authors. I always try to say that because they actually gain a reader.
Sarah, thank you so much for joining today. It has been incredible just getting to know you, your business strategy, and just your overall love for indie authors. I mean, what a fucking privilege to actually be so passionate about something that is your job as well. I think it's incredible. And it's something a lot of people aspire to, but don't get right. So is it weird that I say I'm really proud of you?
No, I really appreciate that. And for anyone who is thinking about doing something similar, just take the leap. It's scary as hell, but it's absolutely worthwhile and you learn so much. And I'm still learning as I go. Thank you so much for, wanting to work with me. I'm so excited. You're going to be in May. And so I'll be reading your book very soon. I love all my authors. Thank you to everyone who is watching, tuning in. And thank you so much for your continued support.
Can't wait for everyone to hear your episode, Sarah. You are incredible. And I cannot wait. You know what? I think if I'm still doing the podcast in a year's time, we're going to have a follow-up episode. And then we're going to talk about how the Starlit shelf has evolved since then. We're going to make that a deal.
I would love to do that. Absolutely. Yes, count me in.